Hi, I just stepped on a jack, and it hurt. But it did make me think jack is a very common word in English. So we have jokes like, what do you call a man with a car on his head? Jack. Why is that funny? As I said, jack is a very common word in English. So why are so many things in English called jack? You don't know? You didn't realize there were so many things? Well, let's have a look. Back years ago, centuries ago, there was a need for a common term for your ordinary man, the common man, and it was jack. As you know, if you've watched the naval idioms videos, Jack Tar was the name of the seafarers, the sailors. They were called Jack Tar. Jack, common man, tar, because when they lost a limb in one of those fights, they would seal it with tar. They all smelled of tar. Tar was a very common material on the ships. So they were Jack Tars. A man who cuts down trees is a lumberjack. Person who repairs the tops of church is a steeplejack. And a person who can do anything, what we'd call nowadays a handyman, is a jack of all trades. And then we've got flapjack. Maybe in America it's a different thing. In Britain, a flapjack is a very chewy food. I think maybe in America it's a kind of pancake. The difference there. But in 16th century Britain, a flapjack was a slang term for a pastry cook. But then humans started being clever and designing machines and things to do those menial jobs. Hence, we have a carjack, that terrible joke at the beginning, for lifting the car. Also a bottle jack, it's a different type of machine for lifting the car. So you would jack up the car. And we use that phrase jack up when a retailer increases their prices, inflates their prices. They are jacking up the prices to make an unreasonable profit. And then in the manor houses, there would be a servant who would take off your boots for you, your muddy boots when you've been out hunting or something. And the boot boy or the servant who did that was replaced by a little device called a boot jack. You wedged your heel in to remove your boots. And then we have the jack, like this sort of audio jack, which goes into your headphones, your phone, your Walkman, if you're old school like me. That was a jack. And when you put it in, you jack it in. So, you can jack yourself into the matrix. Then we have the machine for breaking up the road surfaces, the jackhammer. And back to the Navy, the small Union flag on the ship was called the Union Jack because it was hung from the jack staff. And then in America, they have the jack-o'-lantern. And there's rude ones too. I shan't go into all of them, but there's things like you'll hear in American films, I don't give a jack, meaning I don't care less. I couldn't care less. I don't give a common thought to it. Or jack off, we shan't discuss that. But there are the others. You might want to put them in the comments. Let's get back to our common ones. And there's Jack Frost. Again, very popular in America, but it came from Old Norse mythology. There was a minor giant, a frost giant, called Jockle Frosti. Jockle Jack Frost. And then we have Jackanape, which is a mischievous person, like a child. A mischievous child was a jackanape. And if you're really hyperactive, you might be called a jackrabbit. Why do they call those jackrabbits? Because apparently the ears were very similar to the jackass, the donkey. Why was that called a jackass? Ass comes from the old Latin word assimus, equus assimus, meaning domestic donkey, and jack because it was a labourer. It was there for working, carting your bricks or straw and things. Then we have the Jack Russell Terrier, named after the Reverend John Russell. Jack is a replacement name for John. So he was the first one to breed them. And another one named after somebody is the American Monterey Jack, a Monterey cheese, Monterey Jack, named for David Jacks, an infamous Scottish immigrant to America, landowner, etc., who began mass producing that cheese. And then we have jackpot. Before jackpot became a word that we use for winning the lottery, for example, winning something in a casino, jackpot actually had a very negative meaning. Jack was a word for a common policeman, and pot was a jail. So if you were a criminal and you were in the jackpot, you were caught and put in jail. Then we have jackfruit, a very popular fruit apparently now for making replacement meat products. And then we have hijack, like on the cover image. Hijack. It's something you don't say when you walk into an airport and you see somebody you know called Jack. Hi, Jack. Police everywhere. So hijack originated from the word highway, and jackroll. Jackroll meaning to be robbed. Jackroll, again on the street, jackroll. The common person is rolling you. You hear the phrase sometimes in American films, he was rolled into the money, his products, his watches, everything was taken from him. So hijack, highway, jackroll. So you had the highwaymen like Dick Turpin. And then hijack is when they took your coach as well as your belongings. And that obviously that then became skyjack, carjack, hijack. People don't actually use the word skyjack so much now. They use hijack. When you say hijack, people think about airplanes and gunmen. Yeah, originally it was skyjack for the airplanes and carjack in America when they steal your car while you're driving it. Even in cards, you have the king, queen, and originally knave. They changed the knave to the jack, so jack of spades instead of knave of spades. Apparently to avoid confusion, because when you shorten them, K for king, Q for queen, K for knave, KN, no, just use J for jack. And also in games, you've got the game jacks with the little caltrop type metal things. You throw them on the floor, bounce a ball, and you have to grab as many before the ball comes down. Also, the jack is the name of the target ball when you're playing lawn bowls, a little white ball. They roll the ball trying to hit the jack. And of course, you wear a jacket. This goes back to French. Jacques was their version of the common man. And common men in France wore these small tunic, what we would now call jackets. So they were associated with common man. The gentry would not wear such a thing. And then the British adopted jacket to mean this small tunic. And it stuck. It doesn't have that same negative context that it did 400 years ago. So technically, I didn't step on a cable end. I was ambushed by 700 years of English etymology. And it hurt. Those are the ones I could think of. If you can think of any more, pop them in the comments. If you have a similar word, maybe like the French, Jacques, that is common throughout your language, pop them in the comments as well. I'd love to hear them. And I'll see you for the next video. Have a great week. Bye-bye.